This is ESPN, the network for thoroughbred racing.
Arlington International. It's a track which takes its last name very seriously. And one look around this monument to 21st century racing, and you'll see their commitment to be an integral part of the sport worldwide. But in order to successfully enter the realm of international thoroughbred competition, a racetrack must be well-versed in the language of the lawn.
Final 16, Colorado on the inside, and John Henry at the wire. Colorado wins it.
And no one speaks that language more fluently or more eloquently.
Dear Doctor with a late charge on the inside. Dear Doctor on the inside with Cat Newton.
Then Arlington International, especially when it hosts its premier event, the Arlington Million. Racing to the Breeders' Cup, presented by Thrifty Car Rental. Good afternoon and welcome to Arlington International Racecourse. And a premier event on the racing calendar, it's the Arlington Million. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Newmeyer along with Dave Johnson and Leslie Visser. This is the International Festival of Racing. And their centerpiece, no doubt, is the Arlington Million, where the best from Europe get together with the best from the United States. We kicked it off yesterday with a scintillating race and a good case in point. The Beverly D, a mile and 3/16 for fillies and mares. In the pink silks in the middle, flawlessly. The Eclipse Award winner out of the United States for Charlie Whittingham. But on the outside, Hatouf from England got up to win by a head in the Beverly D. Today, a doubleheader of international racing. We'll have the Secretariat Stakes for 3-year-olds at a mile and a quarter on the turf. And then, of course, the Million itself. Now, the Million is a race that has produced 5, I believe, Breeders' Cup winners in days gone by. Some of them who have opted for the Breeders' Cup Mile. Others have stretched out for the Breeders' Cup Turf. And just who are those stars that we're going to be looking at today? Well, one of them is Paradise Creek, likely be the favorite today. He has exploded this year, winning 6 races in 7 starts. Pat Day will have him rated just off the pace. But what about Star of Cozine, the other American horse with big-time credentials? He's won the Million before, but his last race was off form. He needs to bounce back today. Speaking of Europeans, this crackerjack invader, Muhtarram, top class. He's been bobbing heads with the best horses overseas. He'll be representing Europe in today's Arlington Million. That's the setup. We have a beautiful day for racing and a big crowd on hand here at Arlington, and we can't wait to bring you our coverage of the Million right here on ESPN. When we come back, we'll talk to you about the first stakes race and introduce the field for the Arlington Million. Stay tuned. Racing to the Breeders' Cup. Today's coverage of the Arlington Million is brought to you by Budweiser, Beechwood Age for a crisp, clear, classic taste. By Hollywood Park, where great times are a sure bet. By the Thoroughbred Racing Association, assuring the highest racing standards. By Auto Tote, where the action is. And by Thrifty Car Rental, historically known for low rates. Welcome back to the 14th running of the Arlington Million, and we have 14 hopefuls in this year's event. So let's first set the conditions of racing for this Grade 1 event, the Arlington Million. The purse, a whopping $1 million. They'll be traveling a mile and a quarter on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. The weather here at Arlington, well, it rained earlier today, but the sun is peeking through the clouds. A 50% chance of showers, but that humidity we had yesterday in Chicago has mercifully disappeared, and the course is firm for today's Arlington Million. For more on today's classic, let's go to my broadcast partners, Dave Johnson and Leslie Visser.
A sensational race yesterday in the Beverly D. Leslie, do you think we got another good one in store?
Oh, that was a tremendous effort. And today, another deep field. This could be the real dream team. And as you know, Dave, there is no overwhelming favorite.
Interesting that 10 of the horses in the field raced overseas. Muhtarram may be the best coming in for this race. A Kentucky bred, but he's never raced in the United States.
We'll see how he does. And as you know, Dave, the real star here might be the racetrack. It's clean, it's functional, it's landscaped. It's considered the finest facility in America. Although racing has been here at Arlington for at least 70 years, the beautiful high-tech facility known as Arlington International is not that old.
Well, I was working for another network back in 1985 when old Arlington Park was consumed by this incredible fire. Then 28 days later, Dick Duchessois and his team put together the Miracle Million under tents, and then Arlington International was rebuilt into this grand palace that we have here today.
That was a tremendous accomplishment, and besides being known for its beauty, Arlington boasts, Dave, one of the world's premier turf courses.
And that's probably one of the reasons why horses and horsemen from around the planet come here. Really gives it an international flavor.
That's true. They also love the purses. It was the first thoroughbred track to offer a $1 million purse, and Dave, you've got to love a track where the legendary jockey is named Early Fires.
And he has a mount in the Arlington Million this year. Let's take a look at the full field. We start with Fanmore, a front runner with Kent DeSormo at 15. Pat Valenzuela rides Alex the Great. Muhtarram with Willie Carson in from England to ride. Johan Quat's trained by Ron McAnally, who's won this race 3 times. Spartan Sharif, also an invader, is a long shot. And Maristani with the leading rider of the current meet here, Aaron Grider, aboard. Blues Traveler with Chris Antley is somewhat of a long shot. Petite Loop, ridden by Walter Swinburne, who won the big race yesterday. The 8-5 favorite is Paradise Creek with Pat Day. Fastness with Gary Stevens. He's the only jockey in the field ever to have won the million. Star of Cozy, last year's winner. Split Run, Mr. Cowboy, and Semyon, all coupled in a mutual field. 3 for the price of 1.
Well, Dave, it's never easy to win this race, but one interesting horse you mentioned is Fastness, who's trained by someone who's young and capable, and unusually at a race of this level, just happens to be a woman. Surrounded by horses since childhood, Janine Sahadi was raised on a breeding farm in Northern California.
I've always been around farm life. There is a difference between the farm and the racetrack, but it's basically in my family. My brother Stephen runs the farm, manages Cardiff. I think there's 12 or 13 stallions there right now. And, you know, my high school graduation gift was a horse, a racehorse, and we always had the horses named after us when we were kids. And I've always been around it and always loved it.
With so few female role models, her heroes were male, but even then, it wasn't always easy.
I can't give you exact incidents. I can't think of them, but I do know that if you're going to do this and be a woman, you either better be ready to be offended or you better make sure that you don't put yourself in situations where you're going to, I mean, I'm not going to walk up to a group of 10 guys in the morning, you know, and say, hey, how you doing, because I know what's coming.
Her success didn't come overnight. It was much quicker than that. She's had 4 stakes-winning horses and more than $1 million in purses since taking out a trainer's license in April of '93. And now she's here with a major player in Fastness, the 4-year-old colt who's recovering from a minor knee injury.
I think things happen for a reason, and maybe when we took the chip out and gave him some time, it was really for the best. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think he would run well.
Ironically, she is not the only woman here. The legendary Cricket Head will saddle Petite Loop. Dave, luck could be a lady today.
It's an interesting field of trainers, too. John Ghazi, who's been successful on both sides of the Atlantic, and younger trainers like Tom Amos, who certainly is on his way up. But with Cricket Head winning the Beverly D yesterday, and with Janine Sahadi here, well, it could be ladies' weekend. Right, Bob?
So an interesting handicapping proposition, Leslie and Dave, and the fans here at Arlington have precisely 29 minutes to come up with their favorite selection. I'm joined by Brian McGrath. He's the commissioner of the Thoroughbred Racing Association. Speaking of handicapping and picking, the National Best 7, I know, is one of your pet projects. How is that going?
Oh, it's an exciting project, Bobby. We've got it up and running. It's 7 races from around the country every Saturday, telecast over a 1-hour time period. So it's something new and different for the fans.
One of the concerns that I hear from horse players, Brian, is that they feel that maybe there's a lack of information, that this is not being promoted or marketed properly or aggressively enough. Do you think that's a fair concern?
Yeah, I think it is. But in doing our best to try and counter that, we put a high emphasis on local promotion, which I think the format lends itself to. Additionally, one of the exciting things that's coming up is that we're going to be on ESPN. We've got a deal with ESPN2 with the Deuce to be on as of September the 10th, every week live from 5 to 6 Eastern Time. So we're real excited about that.
All right, so we'll look forward to it on ESPN2. And with that in mind, let's segue to yesterday's results. Seems appropriate. And there were some lucky winners. In fact, 13 of them. Lucky number 13. And it was $10,794.80 to handle a little under $300,000. We'll be back with the Secretariat Stakes as Charlie Whittingham eyeballs this particular race. It's named for the greatest of them all. We'll be back. Welcome back to Arlington International. A program note for those of you who tuned in earlier expecting America's Horse. We will tell you that it will air in its entirety on Friday, September 9th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here on ESPN. The conditions of the Secretariat, the first of our international doubleheader. Grade 1, $400,000 the purse. 1.25 miles is the distance on a firm turf course. Let's run down some of the prime contenders. They include Smart Enough, who's a big long shot, number 2, a horse with some good local connections, and he's a big bomb up there at 44-1. A lot of folks think Jaggery John might have a shot at 12. Alex Solis rides for the first time. Vaudeville at 5-1, a son of theatrical, appropriately named. The big European invader is Colonel Collins. He's finished 3rd in several grade 1s over in Europe. I know Star Campaigner is a horse that folks here in Arlington think might have a shot, and Aaron Grider has been a hot local jockey here at this racetrack. Earlier today, they ran the Secretariat Stakes. For the call, let's go to Dave Johnson.
And they're off. Star Campaigner away smartly from the far outside. Jaggerty John is also up close with Vaudeville. Then Smart Enough and Zindari on the inside. Cash Asmussen looking for a little room early. Looks like he's got a rank horse as they pass us for the first time. It's Jaggerty John taking command, and on the outside there goes Vaudeville into the second spot. At the rails, Zindare is pulling along in 3rd. On the outside, Darren Go with Willie Carson up 4th quickly. Smart Enough is back to 5th. Saltgrass at the rail 6th. LaHint in the blue cap 7th and gaining on the outside. Indian Sun is 8th between horses. I'll Fax You trapped in at the rail is next. Then comes Star Campaigner gaining a bit on the outside. 2 back to the tepid favorite Colonel Collins, and then it's 3.5 lengths farther back to the Mutual Field Usman and Seattle Rob, who bring up the rear. 13 lengths from front to back, and on the front end, it's Jaggerty John with Alex Solis aboard, leading the pack by a length. Vaudeville is right there in second position, and on the outside, there goes Darren Go. Darren Go quickly charging up on the outside into the second spot, and at the rails, Zindare, jockey wearing the pink cap, is 4th by a length and a quarter. LaHint content in 5th position at this point. Saltgrass is gaining on the outside. I'll Fax You saves ground and moves up a bit with Eddie Maple at the rail. They're midway on the turn. Jaggerty John leads it. Darren Go 2nd. On the outside, Vaudeville in the red and white colors is 3rd. Zindare with Cash Asmussen on the inside, right there, poised for the drive as they straighten away in the lane. Jaggerty John has the lead. Vaudeville on the outside. Darren Go between horses. LaHint is coming quickly on the outside along with Saltgrass and Zindare at the rail, having a bit of a traffic problem. And down the stretch they come. Jaggerty John leads it, but Vaudeville on the outside is advancing steadily, and between horses, Darren Go, a 3-horse photo finish. It's either Vaudeville on the outside or Darren Go at the rail. A sensational race ending in a photo in 2 minutes and 1 second.
Just another example of the thrill of international racing. Another 3-horse photo, just as we had in the Beverly D for fillies and mares. 2 horses representing the United States, 1 from Europe. And the American Vaudeville, an appropriately named son of the sire Theatrical, wins it to pay $12.40. Darren Go, saddled by Cricket Head from France, runs 2nd. And Jaggery John, who set the pace, ran 3rd. This was a thrilling stretch drive involving 3 horses that set a reasonably slow pace here in the Secretariat, and it would be on the outside Theatrical with Gary Stevens in from the West Coast to get up in Vaudeville, I should say, not Theatrical, of course. He's the son of Theatrical, winning it in a 3-horse photograph. Well, let's turn our attention to the Arlington Million. Leslie standing by with one of the key players.
Bob, I'm here with the man who'll be riding the front runner, Fanmore, Kent DeSormo. Ken, only 1 horse has won the Million by going wire to wire. What do you need from Fanmore today?
I need for him to be the second. I think that, yes, he is pretty much the lone speed. If he can hold him off, he'll get there today.
Everyone is just praising Paradise Creek. What other horses do you have to watch for?
The whole field. This is probably the most contentious million I've seen in a while. I think every horse out there has a chance, and I'm truly afraid of everyone.
What kind of fractions do you expect?
As slow as possible. I hope I can walk around there, but I don't think I will. Every jockey in the jocks room knows that the track is fast, and you can bet your bottom that they're going to pick the pace up about on the half-mile pole, and you'll have to be truly genuine to win today.
Well, everyone's used to seeing you running on the beach, riding on the beach at Del Mar, but is it true you're going to be in an episode of Baywatch?
Pretty exciting. Last night we did the storyline, and
which is?
Well, there's going to be me and a horse in a horse race, and it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to being on Baywatch, where over 1 billion people will be watching.
You have an awful lot of fans. We know most of them. Congratulations to you, Kent. Good luck today. Back to you, Bob.
All right, Leslie, Kent DeSormo with a blossoming career as an actor. He's doing very well, I might add, on the track. Time now for our Gainsborough owner of the month for the month of July. He's from California. He's an owner and breeder. And his name is Mr. John Harris, so we congratulate him. He's a happy guy, and so will the winner of today's upcoming Arlington Million. He or she will take home $600,000. 18 minutes and counting to post time for this year's edition of the Arlington Million, and just a couple of days in counting to the kickoff of college football here on ESPN. Thursday, September 1st, it'll be Arizona at Georgia Tech. Arizona, the defending co-champions of the Pac-10. Only 2 horses in the history of this grand event have competed on 3 different occasions, and one of them is Star of Cozine. Last year, he was a convincing winner at 4 to 5 odds, 80 cents on the dollar, and you think this year he'd be favored again, but not so. While this year's Million, with its 14 starters, may seem like a wide-open affair to some, others are firmly convinced there is one horse to beat. His name is Paradise Creek, but his trainer will be the first to admit that this race is no pushover.
Absolutely. I think the depth of the competition is great. I mean, you've got 2 or 3 good Europeans, you've got good horses from East and West Coast, and you've got, you know, quality horses with speed and some good finishers. So I don't think it's really lacking in any area.
Since the beginning of the year, Paradise Creek has been spectacular, winning 6 of 7 1994 starts. But for all those wins, it's the last one people remember. Saratoga Springs, New York, August 12th, the Bernard Baruch, where he was beaten just a length by arch-rival Lure, a horse he had twice defeated earlier this year.
We had no excuses. You know, we stalked Lure, of course. We stayed within a length of him most of the race, and we didn't get any further away from him than 2 lengths, and never got closer than a length, I guess. And he just kind of had the jump on us from the word go, and we raced. We just weren't going to run him down on that day.
The Bernard Baruch, a tough race run just 2 weeks ago. So the million-dollar question is this: has Paradise Creek had enough time to recover from that battle with Lure?
Well, we had a nice little rest going into that race. We had 2 months off going into that race, and we knew what the time frame was well in advance, and we knew that we were coming to Arlington Park. So I think knowing that, we probably didn't squeeze him as hard as we could have for the last race, hoping to leave a little bit for the Million.
He's been a remarkable racehorse this year, Paradise Creek, and he'll be the favorite with jockey Pat Day today. Interesting that Billy Mott has been the leading conditioner here at Arlington before, has never won the Arlington Million. And Pat Day, who's been the leading rider here at Arlington International many times, and he has never won the Million. So something's got to give for Billy Mott and Pat Day with Paradise Creek here today. But there are others, of course. Muhtarram, the European trainer John Gosden, he's a big threat. And other Americans as well. This is as fine and when balanced a field as you'll see in a horse race. 14 of them in all, a 3-ply mutual field entry, and I know the handicappers are pouring over their notes and their speed figures and their Ouija boards, hoping to come up with the right horse for today's Arlington Million. I mentioned there are 14 of them. That is a big, bulky field for this year's running of the Million. Horses representing both countries. Fanmore is number 1, 6 starts, 3 wins. He was a $62,000 1989 Keeneland September yearling purchase. He'll run on or near the lead for trainer Bobby Frankel and jockey Kent DeSormo. Number 2 is Alex the Great. He's won graded races on both coasts. He's won from 1 1/8 to 1 1/2. He'll be well back early. His owner, music impresario Barry Gordy. We've mentioned Muhtarram. He's a top-class European performer, a $650,000 Keeneland July yearling purchase. Impeccable breeding. His company line in Europe, the best. Izood, Apple Tree, Big Stone, all tough nuts. Willie Carson is in from Europe to handle Muhtarram. Number 4 is Johann Quartz, like Alex the Great, a late runner. Though 1 1/4 may be a tad out of his scope, he was a well-beaten third in last year's Million, the star of Cozine. But his trainer, Ron McAnally, has won this race 3 times, twice with John Henry. Number 5 is Spartan Sharif. Only the 3rd race this year. He's a European. He went off at 50 to 1 versus Muhtarram at the York in the Grade 1. Juddmonte finished 5th, 6 lengths behind Muhtarram on paper, a tad outclassed here today. We go to Maristani, number 6, a $25,000 September Keeneland purchase. Ran an impressive second to Fanmore here at Arlington in a prep for the Million. Impressive because he tried to close off a very slow pace. Made up 4 lengths. Couldn't get by Fanmore at the line. Number 7 is Blues Traveler. He's in from the West Coast. A 4-year-old was sharp in the spring, but he set a slow pace and packed it in the Grade 1 Eddie Reed at Del Mar. Jockey Chris Antley will press the pace with this one. You can be sure of that. Number 8 is Petite Loup, or Little Wolf. Same connections as Beverly D. Winner Hatouf, owner Maktoum Al Maktoum, trainer Cricket Head, rider Walter Swinburne. 4 wins and 5 starts in Europe this year, but was 5th beaten 5 to King's Theater, although a trouble trip for Petite Loup in that race. We've talked about Paradise Creek. He's number 9. He's the horse to beat. He's had a remarkable rivalry with Lure on the turf that might be compared to a Firmden Alydar in the dirt, but there's no Lure today. The advantage he has over his American rivals, he has packed the top weight before others have not. Number 10 is Fastness. This is a rapidly improving 4-year-old, lightly raced, a bang-up second in the Eddie Reed at Del Mar. Needs to improve 3 or 4 lengths to threaten these, but he's capable. Number 11 is Star of Cozine, his 3rd Million try. Won it last year at 4 to 5, but clearly off his game when a trouble 5th to Fanmore in the Arlington Handicap. The question here, which Star of Cozine will show up today? The jockey, Yutaka Taki. And a 3-horse mutual field consisting of number 12F Split Run will break from the rail. Consistent, but maybe traveling in too classy company today. Number 13F is Mr. Cowboy. Same can be said of him, a low allowance runner. I'll be kind. He's ambitiously placed. His owner, Paul White, believe it or not, ponied up $50,000 in supplemental money to run today. And finally, 14F Semyon. This is the best of the 3-horse mutual field. He beat Alex the Great twice in February at Santa Anita. He was a strong second to Grand Flotilla in the Grade 2 Sunset at Hollywood. The same Grand Flotilla who beat Bien Bien earlier this year. And Lord White, the owner, gave his life, Lady White of Hull, his wife, this horse, as a birthday present in November of '93. That's the post parade for the 14th running of the Arlington Million. Crowd making their decisions, selections. We're moments away from one of the premier events on the American racing calendar. Stay with us. Just 8 minutes to post time here at Arlington International for this $1 million 1.25 mile turf race. Let's update the odds presented by Auto Tote. Muhtarram, the European, at 4. No surprise there. He's receiving that kind of backing. Blues Traveler, a nice value at 25 to 1. Paradise Creek is the favorite at 2 to 1. Star of Cozine, 12 to 1. Because he's been one of the heroes of the Arlington Million in years gone by, but so has John Henry. Remember him? A lot of folks know that he won the first Million here at Arlington International. It was then the only $1 million race on the calendar. But do you recall the second time old John won the Million? It was $1,400,000 4 back in 1984, and the third start in this big race for the now 9-year-old John Henry, who had just been caught at the wire in the 83 million. It wouldn't happen this time.
Like a bullet, John Henry now taking command. Royal Heroine down along the rail in second. Nijinsky Secret is third. But here he is, a living legend. John Henry by 2 on the wire.
Yeah, when he won the Arlington Million in '84, he won it pretty much within himself. He had the same kind of trip that I had on him the year before, where I was laying fairly close. I was just a few lengths off the lead and in good striking position. And I had the same horse in front of me, Nijinsky Secret, who had a habit of trying to lug out on the turn, and that kind of cost me the race the year before. But in the '84 edition of the Arlington Million, John was able to go ahead and go on by Nijinsky Secret with great ease, and he won pretty comfortably. He beat Royal Heroine, who was a really top filly. I think she went on to win the Breeders' Cup Mile later that year.
Well, John Henry was always a favorite here at the Arlington Million, but we're looking for a long shot. The Budweiser long shot.
Fickle horse players have selected today's Bud long shot, none other than the hero of this race last year, Star of Cozine. The fans looked at the past performances, said, "What have you done for me lately?" and have seen 3 outs with no wins, all at less than 2-1. Well, he had trouble last out, and we're looking and hoping for a clean and maybe lucky trip today. With new rider Yutakitaki aboard, number 11, Star of Cozine, today's Budweiser long shot.
Well, Dave Johnson was hot last week at Monmouth. He picked Taking Risks as the Budweiser long shot, and that came in and paid $11. But Star of Cozine today is the Bud long shot. We'll be back with a running of the Arlington Million. Today's coverage of the Arlington Million is presented by Hollywood Park, where great times are a sure bet. Well, we've introduced you to Star of Cozine and Paradise Creek, the top American hopefuls. But earlier today, Dave Johnson had a chance to size up the Europeans.
John Gosden is a Group 1 trainer with a Grade 1 horse. How has Muhtarram traveled?
It's traveled well. They came in on Monday. They had to go from London to Amsterdam, and then they had a 4-hour delay in Amsterdam, but then flew on KLM through here to Chicago, and in the end they traveled well. Long journey.
And now that he's here, how has he worked?
He just galloped the first day out, and then yesterday he breezed 5/8. Nice, easy time, 105 around the dogs. The dogs are out pretty wide, and I'm satisfied with his progress.
John, has he taken well to this turf course?
Yes, he has. It's we've always regarded this, or many American trainers, when I was here, regarded that this is the best turf course in America. I think it's riding very well. It's in top condition, and he's happy with it.
He's a handy horse, so it would seem that he would work well here.
Yes, he's small, low to the ground. He's out of a Northern Dancer mare, much more that type of horse than the type of his sire alleged, and I hope he handles the track well.
Who's your competition?
Well, obviously Paradise Creek. He's the outstanding American horse in the race. He seems to have blossomed as a 5-year-old, got better with age, like good wine, and I would see him as the one that everybody has to beat. He's a legitimate favorite.
John, you've seen so many of these horses in their European form. Does any jump out?
Well, overall, I think Petit Loop is a very nice horse, but they do have good form on them. They're nice animals. They wouldn't have been brought here unless they were good horses, so you wouldn't be surprised to see one of them come right there.
A decade ago, you won the Breeders' Cup with Royal Heroine. Isn't it about time for you to win another one?
Well, it would be, but I've been in England, of course, for the last 5-6 years. But this horse would be a possibility. We'd had to discuss it with the owner and the manager. We did come last year, and he didn't travel well, so he couldn't run. But maybe we'd be looking this autumn in Kentucky.
We'll see you there.
Thank you.
Muhtarram cut up his hawks in that race in England 12 days ago, but Gosden has pronounced him fit and ready for today's Million. For a pick and an opinion, Leslie Visser.
Bob, I'm going with Fanmore. He's lightly raced. He's won over this track before, and his trainer is really hot. Bobby Frankel's going for his second $1 million purse in 2 weeks. I like those odds.
Well, I got to go with the favorite, Leslie, Paradise Creek. Although he's breaking from the 12th post position, and Star of Cozine's breaking from 14. You know, over the years, from post 8 and out, the statistics are overwhelming. 1 for 58 from post 8 and out. The only winner from the outside, John Henry. For the call of this year's Arlington Million, let's go to Dave Johnson.
And there's Blues Traveler moving into line with Chris Antley. I like Muhtarram. I think it's going to be the same kind of a finish as we had yesterday in the Beverly D, and I expect Muhtarram will be circling up with Willie Carson aboard to get it at the wire. Here's Paradise Creek. Pat Day looking for his first million victory. And Fastness in the green and blue colors will be moving up. Now here's the Bud Long shot, Star of Cozine. Can you imagine odds on 1 year and 14-1 as we speak. The gray horse is Fastness with Gary Stevens, who just won the Secretariat. And 11, Star of Cozine, is in line. And they're up. From between horses, Fastness going for the lead, but on the inside there goes Fanmore, and Fanmore on the inside with Kent DeSormo as expected takes command. And from between horses, here comes Paradise Creek ranging up, and Semyon is also up with the leaders. There goes Blues Traveler with the white cap into the second spot, and Muhtarram at the rail is in good position as they go to the clubhouse turn. It's Fanmore in front by a length and 3/4. Muhtarram on the inside saves ground in the second spot. That's Blues Traveler on the outside, and the white cap now advancing up. Then it's a gap of a length and 3/4, and at the rail, Petit Loup with Walter Swinburne is fourth at this point by a length and a half. On the outside, it's Paradise Creek in fifth by half a length. At the rail, Semillon is next by 2, then comes Fastness. 2 back to Marastani on the outside. That's Split Run gaining a bit. After that, at the rail, it's Alex the Great. Quite strung out. They move down the back stretch, but Kent DeSormo is keeping the front end with a lively pace. In front now by about a length and a half. And Blues Traveler on the outside with Chris Antley charging up on the inside. Muhtarram is also flying. Middle of the racetrack, Paradise Creek is now fourth by a head. Petit Loup at the rail looks for some racing room in fifth. Fastness is sixth. After that, it's Spartan Sharif in the blue colors, followed on the outside by Split Run. They turn for home, and it's Fanmore who's led every step of the way, in front by a length. Paradise Creek ranging up on the outside. Muhtarram in the blue and white colors is third at this point. Petit Loup is fourth, and down the stretch they come, and Paradise Creek on the outside flies by with Pat Day aboard. He's going to get his million, and it's Paradise Creek, the winner by 3/4 of a length. On the inside, Fanmore held on for the play spot, and there's a photo for the show between Muhtarram and on the inside, Petit Loup. So, stalking the pace, Paradise Creek gets a well-deserved pat from Pat Day, and they finally get to the winner's circle. It's Pat and Paradise in 1:59.3.
This is vintage Paradise Creek and vintage Pat Day. So patient, positioned perfectly, pushed the button when he had to, got the acceleration, and won the race this jockey has never been able to capture before in 9 other tries. It appeared that Fanmore was going to steal this one wire to wire with Kent DeSormo nursing his speed beautifully through moderate fractions, 24-1, 48.5, 111-2, a challenge from Muhtarram in the blue, but the big horse is Paradise Creek in the gold and violet stripes. Pat Day, Billy Mott, the trainer, and this remarkable horse has added another notch to his belt. The winner of this year's Arlington Million, the favorite, Paradise Creek. Wow, what a race. We'll be back to make it official and talk to the principals here at Arlington. They're saluting the champion here at Arlington International. And what a grand horse he is. And I imagine as we race to the Breeders' Cup at Churchill Downs that we'll be seeing Paradise Creek that day, making amends for, I know, what was a disappointing run when he lost to Lure last year in the mile. And they have had a great rivalry this year. Here are the unofficial results. The running time, 1:59.3. The winner is Paradise Creek. Fanmore almost stole it in the front end. Muhtarram chased him, ran third. A look at the stretch of the Arlington Million. Dave Johnson.
They reached the half in 48 seconds, and just as Kent DeSormo told Leslie Visser earlier in the broadcast, he was going to try and slow it down, and he did as far as he could. As we watch in our Thrifty Car Rental replay, the eventual winner in the yellow colors on the outside. At this point, Muhtarram and Blues Traveler were between Paradise Creek and Fanmore. Fanmore lets out another notch, and Paradise Creek shakes, rattles, and rolls on by. And you can really get a view of the different styles. American jockeys on the two front runners, and just behind Willie Carson and Walter Swinburne. But there it is, and a raise of the whip. Boy, that must be a sweet victory for Pat Day, Bob.
Well, before the race, Leslie Visser had a chance to analyze strategy with Kent DeSormo. It nearly worked to a T. He joins Leslie again after the race.
Well, Kent, you were almost 1 in a million. Did you think you were going to steal this race?
I tell you, I even kind of felt bad when I reached back there and tapped him to ask him for a little more coming to the wire when I could see Paradise Creek getting to me, because he was giving me every ounce of blood he had. Unfortunately, there was one faster than him today, and that's what it took, because he ran a hell of a race.
Well, you did a terrific job yourself. Thank you, Kent.
Right,
back to you, Bob.
When we come back to Arlington International, we'll make the 14th running of the Arlington Million official, but we know there are no inquiries or objections. There's the winner, the victorious Pat Day, the horse, Paradise Creek. Today's Arlington Million coverage presented by Hollywood Park, where great times are a sure bet. They've made it official, and the winner is Paradise Creek. 560 to win as the public choice. Fanmore ran second, Muhtarram third. The exacta, combining 9 and 1, paid $38.40 in the running time, 159 and 3. Leslie standing by with the winning connections.
Well, Bob, for these two gentlemen, it was truly splendor in the grass. Congratulations to Billy Mott and to Pat Day. Pat, in the winner's circle at the Arlington Million.
Well, it's great to be here, and it's especially nice to be here with Billy Mott. I've had a lot of success with him through the years. Tremendous horseman, and he trained this horse right up to the minute. Had him very well prepared for this race, and it made my job extremely easy. I was a good passenger. He responded when I called on him and got the job done.
Take us through the top of the stretch. What happened there?
Well, I was just laid back off them horses. I was running at Fanmore right here, but I felt like I had him anytime I wanted him. When I got to him, I went ahead and went to the whip and encouraged my horse a little bit. Probably was not extremely necessary because nobody was running, but I just didn't, at that late stage of the game, I didn't want him to let down a little bit and have somebody come and beat us. But it was just a monster effort on his part today, and credit to Bill Mott, the trainer.
Congratulations to you. Tremendous effort. And Billy, this horse is now, he's only lost one race this year. What about this horse?
Well, he's had a very good year, and his only loss comes to a very good horse in his own right. This is one of the main ones that we should have been pointing for, and we got lucky and we got it. So we're pleased with the horse. The horse really deserves to win. He's a good horse, and they sure can't take anything away from him now.
What are the Breeders' Cup implications now for Paradise Creek?
Well, we've got probably one more race to go before the Breeders' Cup. I think we've got another race lined up, maybe in Washington for him, the Laurel International. Then we've got to decide what we're going to do as far as the Breeders' Cup.
We've got a true superstar. Keep him on the track.
Okay,
thanks, Billy. Congratulations to you both. Back to you, Bob.
All right, Leslie, and of course, Billy Mott has a fascinating choice ahead of him, whether he will campaign this horse in the mile or in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Big difference between a mile race and a mile and a half. Paradise Creek versatile enough to handle either of those distances. I'm sure we'll see him in one of those two races at Churchill Downs coming up a little bit later on this year. When we come back, we'll have more coverage as we wrap it up from the Arlington International Racecourse. And we're back at Arlington International, where racing to the Breeders' Cup is presented by Thrifty Car Rental. For the complete order of this 14th running of the Arlington Million, let's go back to Dave.
Paradise Creek was the winner. Fanmore was second. Then after that, it was Muhtarram getting the show money. Petit Luke, fastest, was fifth. Then Johan Quadson, Spartan Sharif, Blues Traveler, split run. Part of the mutual field was ninth. Alex the Great finished 10th. Maristani, Star of Cozine, Mr. Cowboy, and Semyon brought up the rear. The time, 1:59 and 3, ties the third fastest time in the history of the Arlington Million. That's extraordinary, considering that the half was in 48 seconds, with Kent DeSormo slowing down those fractions. Yes, this is a worthy addition to the horses who have won this great race. Not just the horse, but the trainer, Bill Mott, and the jockey, Pat Day. Bob?
And I might add that Pat is quite a popular figure here at Arlington, serenaded by the fans, one and all, after that stirring ride aboard Paradise Creek. Now, what about the Breeders' Cup, and what about the Caesars future book odds on the Classic division? Well, updated through yesterday's Whitney Stakes at Saratoga, won by Colonial Affair. We see that Devil Is Due remains the 5-to-1 favorite. Strode's Creek hopes to be back soon at 6-to-1. Go for Gin, a disappointing third, and a comeback for Nick Zito. He's at 7-to-1. Tabasco Cat for Wayne Lucas at 8-to-1. Colonial Affair and Thunder Rumble. Speaking of Caesars, their president, Rich Rose, joined us earlier today for this announcement.
Well, Bob, we're trying to work with the TRA and Del Mar, Atlantic City, and Arlington Park to try to create a turf racing Triple Crown, the equivalent basically of what the Triple Crown is for 3-year-olds on the dirt. We want to create for turf racing. We've been working with Brian McGrath at the Thoroughbred Racing Association and, of course, Del Mar, Arlington, and Atlantic City. And we hope next year to be able to realize this on network television with the greatest horses in the world coming here to the United States to race, with a bonus for a horse that sweeps all the races, and really focus the kind of attention on turf racing that this industry needs, wants, and is deserving of.
And no question, the popularity of racing on the grass very strong throughout this country and in Europe, and we had 3 great races here at Arlington on the International Festival. For her final thoughts on this marvelous day, let's go to Leslie.
Bob, it's absolutely true what you just said. This was a lawn party. We saw a superstar win it. We saw a fun horse finish second, and the European finished third. They almost got off the plane and went into the winner's circle. So it was, as you said, the Arlington International.
And another tour de force for Paradise Creek, and he'll be raring to go at the Breeders' Cup. Hey, coming up, a complete wrap-up of this on the Digest Tuesday on ESPN at 3:30. Quarter horse and harness update as well. And coming up on ESPN, the NHRA drag racing from Brainerd, Minnesota. That'll be following this telecast. Racing to the Breeders' Cup, presented by Thrifty Car Rental, has been brought to you by Budweiser, Beechwood Age for a crisp, clear, classic taste. By Keeneland, source of the classic horse. By Thrifty Car Rental, historically known for low rates. And by the DeBartolo Corporation, leading the way to the 21st century. Ground transportation provided by Thrifty Car Rental. For reservations at over 850 locations worldwide, call Thrifty at 1-800-4CARS. This has been an ESPN Sports presentation in association with Winter Communications. For Dave Johnson, Leslie Visser, and all the hardworking people here at ESPN, we tip our caps to Paradise Creek, the winner of this year's Arlington Million.